And we are live. What's up, my man?
What's up, bro?
Coming off of a 11.2K score in the 400K Trailblazer.
Yeah, I didn't count how much it was when they gave me the money. We just took the money and left.
Did you make them pay you in ones?
Yeah, all singles.
All right, you got your pizza, right? We got our.
I got pizza right here.
Trashy ass pizza, and your wife's already given you shit about the
Little Caesars
pizza. What is the best pizza in Texas? Like hands down, top of the end.
Joe's. There's this pizza place called Joe's. That is it's pretty phenomenal. Don't forget, I'm from New England, I'm from the East Coast, so pizza, New York style pizza is a thing. And then we move here, and it's like, yeah, pizza's not a thing. So it's hard to find a good one. But there's a guy who owns some pizza joint around here, man. It's Joe's something pizza. Joe's Famous Pizza. Yeah, that's what it is. And man, it's
so you're a folder.
Yeah,
unlike poker, you're a pizza folder. You
correct.
Fold it up.
I fold
dip it
my
in
pizza.
Some ranch.
I fold my pizza and I don't fold in cash. So you know what I mean? It's really good though. But we had to go a little C, so my wife's like giving me shit. So it's all right.
We had to be able to get the same thing, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. And I told her, I was like, look, this is what it's all about. You see back there, right? It's all about pizza and baths.
Oh, he's got the we got to zoom in here now.
Yeah. Right there. Pizza and baths, bro. We're grinding.
My legacy in poker is going to be the bathtub. Alpha says thin crust, bottom crunching pizza is the best. Has to be folded. We have a
pizza at some point. I didn't know they had pizza in Florida.
At some point, there is a New York style pizza joint here we'll do for one of the episodes. I feel bad because it's a little mom and pop shop that went in next to the grocery store about 3 blocks from my house. And I don't think I ever see anybody go in there. Right. But I don't know, Jay, you tell me how they do it, because here at this place, I've never had pizza. I've never been to New York City. The way they do the New York style pizza here in Illinois is they have like a pre-cooked like cheese kind of like pizza thing that's really huge. And then they like put a bunch of you order whatever toppings you want. They throw it on top and they throw it back in the oven for like a couple minutes and they give it to you. That's not the same. Okay.
That's not it.
I figured.
That's not it. Don't forget, I'm half Italian, man. So, we want a nice, fresh, cooked to order, not this like parking lot pizza. You just throw shit on there.
Yeah.
But I mean, cheers to the little C's, man. They're cheap too.
Dude, look.
I need it. My bankroll.
We could have. Yeah. You had to pay all the backers out, right?
Right.
So tell me this, Jay. We're gonna talk about a lot of stuff today, and I really want to get into poker freestyling. But before we go too deep, especially if anybody's out there watching, they don't know you too well. What is unique to Jay Carrafiello's poker? Like if and I know we kind of have some similar styles, but if somebody was to look at your style and just break it down, what are the things that you do that nobody else does? Or maybe nobody else does as well as you?
I would probably say the biggest upside of my game is I'm a kind of a pain in the ass to play. Not like the normal, like there's so many like, great players, right? Like elite players that you're just like, I just don't want to sit down with them. But it's almost like it's the fear of who they are, right? Not so much the fear of like your style or just, again, you're just a royal pain in the ass. I think for me, I deviate pretty well. I go off script quite a bit. And I know like a lot of times, like I'll get shit or like, well, you typically don't give me shit because you get it, you don't really give me shit. But some of my other peers, will give me shit about certain things. But my ability to just go off script, man, and my discipline is probably by far one of my unique edges. You know, people just get in too many situations where there's just like, I got to get it in, or, you know, even in cash, you know, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm down. You know, I bought in for 300. I'm down to 100. I just need to find a spot, ship it in. Like, you don't really even need to do that, right? It's either like top up, or just wait for a really good spot. My discipline is probably one of the biggest things. And you hear it a lot, like on TCH streams, because remember, this isn't my only final table there. I've had quite a few at TCH. And typically you'll hear them talk about, they'll talk about like discipline is something that probably stands out the most, you know?
Yeah, I was laughing during the broadcast the other night because they were like, "Oh, Jay's all the way down to 7 bigs," and I'm like, 7 bigs, like that's heaps in this spot. Right. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah, like, it's a ton of chips. Yeah, it's a ton of chips in that spot. I almost thought about maybe I should just blind down here to like 3, and I've
done that before.
Yeah,
I've absolutely done it before. Especially when like the middling stacks at the final table are low. You know, I always talk about this effective average stack. Like when you have like 1 or 2 monster stacks, the average stack isn't the average stack because everybody's below the average stack except for the chip leaders. So, you know, you can double be 3rd in chips. It doesn't matter how many chips are in your stack. You can double and be 3rd in chips.
Correct. And that table was lopsided anyway, man. Like, you know, when we got to that final, it was pretty lopsided, you know. There were 3 big spots and then, or 2 big spots, and then one was like 6 mil, and then the rest of it was all on the bottom end, you know. I don't know. It was a little unique. I will say this though, I was pretty spot on my reads, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Like I
told you, I told you on that night we talked over text and on phone. I was like, I wouldn't have played anything different. Like I think you picked every spot perfect, and that's the frustrating thing about tournaments is sometimes you can come in and do everything right, and it just doesn't matter. Right. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. You can do everything right, and it doesn't guarantee you the success you're hoping for.
Correct.
You still got a ladder out of it, and you were in a flip to, you know, have a top 4 stack. So you did everything you were supposed to do.
Right. And I said the day before, I remember I listed out every seat, and I was like, this person's going to do this. This person's going to do this. This person's going to do this. Right. And then we get to the stream, and even Brett, he's like, yeah, you were pretty spot on in your reads with everybody. Like, I knew what I was walking into.
Do you find that you're able to lock in on a level, like on another level when you're live compared to online because of all that?
Yeah, I think just the dynamic of like, you have to be so present when you're live, you know? And because you're just forced into it, like I'm not the one who like just has my phone out all the time. You know what I mean? Like there's so many players that like they're playing on Poker Bros, or they're like, you know, they're playing literally like, you know, I watch them, and now like, you know, WPT, right? So like they're all out there just firing away on their phones. So they're basically multi-tabling, you know what I mean? Where I'm not, but that's where like you just get the edge. Like I can get super dialed in, you know what I mean, when you're live. Where online, it's kind of like you just have the ability to wander, you know? Yeah. There's too many buttons you can click. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. All right. They want to see that you have pizza. So I'm going to talk to you about the 7-layer cake, give you a chance to eat some of this delicious $5 goodness here. All right. Oh, dang. You got like a ton of pepperoni on that.
It's world pepperoni, world pepperoni, and regular pepperoni. It's pretty, and stuffed crust. Whew.
You went hardcore. Wait, who's next to you?
My wife.
Oh, well, tell Mrs. Venom we said hey.
She says hey. She's
wait. Are you so? Pizza. Is this your office, or is this like?
Yeah, I'm in the office.
You're just in a room with everybody.
No. Just me and the wife. She's over there trying to make money, and I'm over here talking about how you light it on fire.
So I want to run something by you. I feel like I have a theory, Jay. I think you'll get along with this theory really well. I don't know that anybody else in this stream is going to get along with this theory very well, but I think you and I will click on this. I have a theory that poker is a 7-layer cake. All right. You ever like, you know, you go to Vegas and they got like the cake vending machine, whatever his name is, cooking dude. And it's got like all the different colors. And it's like cake frosting, cake frosting, cake frosting.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So like I feel like entry, like the bottom of the cake in poker is like exploitative poker. You get in the game, you learn your kind of basic exploits, right? How to bet small and get away with it, and how to value bet versus calling stations, right? That's like the base layer. And people get in on that level, and then they kind of get hooked on it, right? They kind of get a little overconfident in it. And eventually someone has to come on and be like, listen, yeah, that's cool and all, but there's this thing called GTO. And that's like the layer of frosting. It's like layer 2. It's like you got to learn GTO. And so then they get into GTO and they start to learn GTO. And GTO teaches them a lot about the foundations and fundamentals and math of the game. But then they kind of get obsessed with the GTO thing, right? Yep. They get a little too into the GTO side. And there's another layer of exploits. And it's like you get to this next tier where it's like, okay, well, now that you understand GTO and the baselines, now you can break out and experience like next level exploits, because now when you see how far your opponents are getting away from what they're supposed to do, you can see how far you can get away from that. Right. And now it's kind of like, y'all GTO people need to come up to our level. And I kind of feel like we're in tier 3, but then I think there's a tier 4, which is another layer of frosting, which is another layer of GTO, where you even dig deeper because of the aggression you can get to in GTO. Right. And that's where you start to learn how to really kind of like ramp that aggression up to a next level. And then there's another layer of cake after that, which is exploits again, which is like, now that you understand how crazy the aggression is, the cards don't matter. And you can start to get crazy. We're going to talk about Deuce 6 suited here in a minute. You can start to get crazy because you just understand the inflection points where your opponents cannot reach that MDF consistently. Right. And that's where you see these next level people that are out there building these massive chip stacks tournament after tournament because they're hammering that. And then when you get to that point, you're probably good enough that now you go back into GTO again and really master GTO, because you're starting to get to the level where you need to know the top tier of GTO to play the best of the best. And that's like layer 6. And once you've mastered that, I think the ultimate layer, the last frosting on the cake, the ultimate exploit is when you understand that even in those high level tournaments, there's a point you can get to where you know GTO and your opponent knows GTO. And you're like, in this one spot, I'm just going to go linear and you're going to get fucked. Because you're going to go with all this bluff catching, right? Because you think I'm polarized, you think you're polarized, and I'm just going to mix an extra 40% value into my range, and good luck, because you and I are never going to be in this spot again, and you have no idea I'm doing it. Right. And that's like the 7-layer cake, right? Yep. That like, if you really want to get to the top, you go through all those layers. That's what you get. What do you think about that? Tell me your thoughts and your reactions to that.
Well, hold on, I gotta buy this pizza.
Sorry, I thought I bought you enough time.
No, I need to taste that again. So,
what a good idea for a show, man! Come on, we're talking poker, we're eating some pizza, we're having a good time.
Nothing better than this, you know. You only get this once a year, and that's in Vegas.
Yeah,
you know, but half the time you're just talking about how early you should probably leave.
Right.
So I think you're spot on. And like, I'll start from the top, the actual top layer, right?
Yeah.
That's just the art of war at that point. You know what I'm saying? And the question becomes, how long does it take for you to get to each layer, right? I think where like you and I have a lot of in-depth conversations of just things that we're doing, or that like even for me that I'm doing from a live perspective. I mean, granted, like I don't, you know, cash, love it, you know, I grind it, but you know, I wanted to, you know, venture into MTTs, right? Like we talked about. So you have to take on these extra layers, you know? And I think to your point, like those who can understand what it takes and when to apply it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like on those, like each layer, you don't have to apply it at like, there's certain games that you play and I promise you probably just get to the 3rd tier of that 7-layer cake.
Yeah, and you're done.
You're done.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to, you know, it's kind of like, you know how you and I were talking about like when Berkey gave Landon Tice advice, right? Of like, you probably should stop studying, you know, and just go crush. Because again, that guy's already he ate the 7th layer years ago.
he was
right.
born in the 7th layer.
Right. And so, but a lot of the events he's playing in, it's not even required, man. You know what I'm saying? You just have to have it, you know? And I think that, to your point, it becomes, I don't know, I posted this the other day. When do you apply it? And do you have the awareness at the table to understand the dynamic of it? I don't really care about the GTO thing. Again, like, you have to know it, in my perspective. I think you and I both know this, right? Like, this is like, you know, you have to know, you have to understand it. It's the baseline. We get it. But then to your point, like how you dig in each one of those layers, it's literally knowing when to flip the switch. Because if you can't deviate from it, you're just gonna get your ass handed to you. You know, like every time. Like, I've been in spots where I'm like, the play is just a GTO spot here, you know, and not even realize, like, against a good player. And I'm like, not even realizing, like, holy shit, I probably just missed like 3 exploitive spots against this one guy at the table. You know what I mean? And it's pretty silly. You just got to know when to, you know, turn it on and turn it off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I've made so much money playing in tournaments in Vegas, tournaments in different places, where a buddy of mine or somebody from my stream ends up on my table, and I get to a river spot and I have a super strong hand and I go like 150% pot. Right. And they're sitting there, look at the spot, and they're like, oh, he's polarizing and he's got this, and they're counting combos and they're going back through flop, turn, and river, and they're thinking about blockers and unblockers. And then they finally make the call. They're like, oh, of course you have it. And I'm like, I'm never balanced here.
Right. That's
like
awesome.
versus you in this spot, like I am pure value and nothing else, because I just know they're gonna go down that rabbit hole, and then they just can't help themselves, because it's like, oh, I gotta get it, I gotta get the bluff catch in here, and it's like, nice job catching something that doesn't exist.
Or you just do something
so fun
off the wall, right? So we all know, example, like there's a lot of spots in the solver where you just lead for like 1 to 2 bigs, right? You just donk lead. It's a blocker bet, right? But most people block bet, and they'll block bet like 4 or 5 bigs, you know, just to get like called or raised in a spot, you know what I mean? And just lose all those chips for no reason. Like, dude, I played in the 100K here, and I blew up a pot. But when we got to the river, I was like, I just don't think he has it, but I don't want to get blown off the hand a ton, but I still want to call. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I kid you not, I think the pot had like 90K in it, and I literally put out a big blind bet. It was just like one big blind bet. I think it was like, we were at like the 4K level. I put out 4K, and the guy looks at me and he's like, what? Literally looks at me and goes, what the fuck is that? and he calls, right? I have ace queen off. I have no pair. And he just calls me off with ace jack, and we scoop the pot. You know what I mean? But I know, against a study, like if I'm at the table with you, I do this. I know you're capable of like, he just doesn't have it here. You know what I mean? And then you just blow me up, you know what I mean, with a big raise. So if I'm at a table where I understand that dynamic, then yeah, I probably will go like half pot, 3/4 pot, where I'm just never getting called by ace high. You know what I'm saying? But the dynamic, dude, like, and people don't adjust.
They don't adjust. And I think it's so important that you have each layer, right? Like, there's things like, let's just say we're at layer 3. Maybe you're at layer 5. You could be. I don't know. I could see you in layer 3 or layer 5. But like, there's people at layer 1 who've never studied the GTO, who see something that we do at layer 3 and go, oh, I'm gonna put that in my game. And you're like, no. Like no. Because you're gonna pick the wrong spot, right? And like a good example, this kind of segues into one of the spots I want to talk of. You were in a spot against a good player, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, 3 months ago, and you 4-bet with deuce 6 suited.
I did.
And like, from a theory perspective, no way in hell, like, you're not opening that hand, you're not 3-betting that hand, you're not 4-betting that hand, there's no blockers and none of this. But you nailed the spot and took down a really nice pot because of the situation. So talk a little bit about that and kind of what goes, like how you get to the conclusion that I'm just gonna stack some chips and slide them in the middle here with the baby deuce 6.
Yeah, so it was funny because I think there was 2 limps in front, and then there was like this random min click. So I'm in late position. The player on my left, I knew was pretty aggressive, but so I I 3-bet. No, it was actually no single raise pot. So I single raise, right? Because it was 2 limps. I raise in position with 6 deuce. The small blind, I was in the cutoff. The small blind 3-bets me. But just from history, I know this player just has uber aggression, but never ever wanted to play a pot out of position, you know. So I look down and like this 3-bet was huge in comparison to levels we're at, you know. And I'm like, okay, naturally I'm going down my head and I'm like, I have no way of winning this hand. This is probably just a fold. But then it goes back to the history or me understanding this very situation, right? Because now it goes fold from the limpers, which we know it's trash. Right. But now I know that this player, I'm going to force them to be in a situation where they're going to have to play for most of their stack, right?
Yeah.
Them not knowing that if they pile, it just goes in the muck. You know what I mean? And I go, I had ace king. You must have aces here. You know what I mean? It goes in the muck kind of thing. So it comes back around to me and I go huge. Like I literally put like almost 3/4 of my stack in and they just go in the tank and they muck like ace queen suited, like whoop, in the muck. And I'll tell you, it's not recommended.
Right.
But I think, again, it just boils down to, do you have that ability? And here was the key part. I was so comfortable doing it. If you would have talked to me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, my comfort level would have never been there to even take that situation. You know what I mean? Because there's also a part of like people go like, well, there's even no rhyme or reason to take this spot. And I'm like, there was in this particular situation with this particular player, like there was. Because then it just allowed me to get away with so much later, you know, where it's just like whenever I did 3-bet or I did raise on limpers, they just knew I wasn't raising weak, right? Like I wasn't light here, you know. So now that cuts down the amount that I get a 4-bet in, you know what I mean, or they 3-bet me, you know what I mean. It's like me basically dictating what the action is at the table, you know.
Yeah.
But that table was perfect for it, you know.
So what went into your I'm curious about your sizing. You said you put about 3/4 of your stack in. I think intuitively a lot of people in a spot like that would be like, well, I don't want to risk too much here. I'm gonna like click it back and make it look like aces. So what made you go big? And I like the big sizing, by the way. I have an answer to this question, but I want to get it straight from your mouth so everybody else can kind of hear the thought process behind going that large.
Well, for me, it's always about, there's pressure spots, right? So we know we're doing this as a pure bluff. So again, my thought process is, one, no matter, unless it's like an extremely great player, but you know, the field that I was in, like, you just don't really have to do it. No matter if I just click back and I go small, they're always coming along, right? And I literally just have no way of, like, I have to put them in a spot because their math is very different than probably our math, most players, right? This is a pretty good player, but at the same time, I understand I have to put pressure on this player. And when I know that good players are in a spot, they muck ace queen every time, right? Like they're just never, it never just goes like up, I'm going to flat here because I have ace queen suited. You know what I'm saying? And rarely, like, are they at the top of their range there? You know what I'm saying? In this spot. And you just have to be aware of it, you know?
Yeah, like if you think about all of the hands that they can 3-bet out of the small blind there, I mean, hands like
Right.
King Jack suited, Queen Jack suited, Jack 9 suited, like there's a whole bunch of suited connect.
King 6
Some
off,
people
right?
will take, yeah, King 6 off. They'll take some of the
Right.
trashy. So their range is really wide. But once you do that, now they're like aces, kings, ace king is even slightly uncomfortable. They're
Right.
folding ace queen. They might fold queens. They're definitely folding jacks. And so there's just such a tiny percentage of the range they can call. And what I love about that sizing is that sizing screams, I'm never folding.
Right.
Even though you do have
Right.
a
I'm
fold
laying it
range there,
down.
right?
Right.
Yep. Right.
Right. Right. I
So
was laying it
so
down.
you give them this impression that you're committed and you are uncapped and you are at top of range,
Right.
and that just strengthens the bluff even more.
And perception of no fold equity.
Yeah, that's massive. That's absolutely massive. Whereas like when you do go small, you can create that doubt, right?
Correct.
So I really like that. What do you think is the key specifically in Texas to exploitative poker?
Whew.
And freestyling, because it's a unique place.
It is a very unique place, man. You know, we talk about example going in the summer, like when you play with Euros, you're just dealing with pure aggression there, right? Where this is a different type of aggression. There's like no rhyme or reason in some spots out here for the amount of money that people pile into some of these pots, man. Like even cash, you know, it's just absolutely absurd. It's nothing to see a $600-700 pot. You know what I mean? When it's just like a 1-2 game, and it's a $600-700 pot before the flop. You know, like I've seen it. It's just absolutely nuts. But the key for me, at least out here, the thought process is one. They're just gamblers, you know. If I were to say percentage of like studied players that I think that I come across or I interact with, like it's under 10%, you know. And just Dallas is a pretty big area, right? It's a lot of players. You know, like that event this weekend had 1,800 runners for it, right? It's pretty big.
That's incredible,
right? For a card room. Now granted, some come from like South Texas, you know, some come from Oklahoma, but one is you do have to have some level of patience, because they'll just pay you off in the right spots, you know. And I think you have to really have a good understanding, especially if you're in an MTT. You have to know who are the guys that just love to play MTTs and they do not play cash at all. And then who are the cash players that are at the table, you know, because that makes a huge difference on how I'm going to label this player or how I'm going to play in a hand with them. Right. Especially like if they're on my left, or, you know, there's this one guy I play with all the time who just, I know as soon as he sits down, he plays deck. Right. And he's a PLO player. So he like plays no limit, like he's playing PLO. It's insane.
Yep.
But what that tells me also is I know he's wide, so I get to go wider, you know. And I was trying to, like, you know, have this conversation with like Craig and Brett one day, you know, we were talking and like, what do you mean? Like, I was like, just go wider, you know, because there's so many spots. So think about this, right, Rob? In spots where like we have ace jack under the gun opens, right? We have ace jack, we're UTG1. We raise here. We're just trying to get a hand like ace queen to fold, right? You know what I'm saying? Or like when we have king jack, can we get, you know, king queen to lay it down? Where I can have jack 9 of hearts in these games, UTG1, and just 3-bet them all day long because I know that their range is like extremely wide. But
it's a value 3-bet.
Right. Right. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. You know, because I know they're going to call me off with jack 8. You know what I'm saying? So I think like you just have to be really good at like, one, navigating. Two, you have to understand the dynamic of who the players are in these events. Or even if you're like at a cash game, just understanding who's here to gamble right? And who here is just carving out some type of, profit, or who's in here that actually has kids at home and trying to make a living. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those are easy to identify for the most part. The gamblers are easy to find. The person who's just here trying to squeak out an extra $200 because they usually beat you in a pot and they get up and walk away anyway, so you won't see them long.
Right.
And then the guy who's just here grinding every single day. He's a reg. He's playing professionally, or you know what I mean. Like he's making a living, out of this. And once you can navigate those spots, man, Texas is like cream of the crop in my opinion. Because you make the money from the folks that don't care about the things that we're thinking about at the table, right? They don't care that Ace King is a 4-bet, right? Or they don't care that Ace King is an open. We talk about this, right? Like you should be opening Ace King here. Like why the hell are you limping, from under the gun? Like they don't care. They have money. They are just going to play it the way that they want to play it. And then when they get stacked, they look at you and they go, nice hand. And then they reach in their pocket, they pull out another $500. You know what I'm saying? And if you do well from game selection, like you can make a pretty penny. Like it's not hard to make anywhere from $90 to $120 an hour out here if you do it right.
Yeah. It's funny because there's a lot, and I've done it too. There's a lot of complaining when it comes to Texas poker. Things like, oh, they never fold to 3-bets, they never fold to 4-bets. You go 6 ways to every flop. You seem to navigate all of those things well. So I'm going to stretch the question out here now so you can.
No,
but
like,
it's one of those things where like I think you're kind of hitting on the principles and the foundational things. But how do you deal specifically, especially with like the multi-way pots, where you get into some of these tournaments and it's like limp, and if you 10x, it's going to go call. Like, how are you navigating that? Because I think that's a very common situation that listeners get into.
Yeah, and it's going to be the hardest thing you ever do, right? Because I mean, again, even some elites will tell you that these are just spots that are not like completely solved, right? Like we probably have an idea, but that theory always becomes we just check a lot, we don't see bet a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, I will tell you first, for folks that are in these situations, you're never going to get better at them if you don't provide yourself the ability to have the experience, right? You have to fire a ton. You just have to have your ass in the seat, for a lack of better terms. But for me, it's been a lot of like experimenting in certain spots, there's spots where like I open and to your point, it goes call. And then you just know the big blinds, like I'm calling because they love pot odds. Like that's a thing. Like pot odds is a thing for everybody. That's how I see it. That's why I laugh at the video that Nicky Limo put out. It's just so true. It's like it's like pot odds. Like you get tired of that shit, but they're just gonna put their money in. Doesn't matter. MTT cash, it's all the same. But what I started doing was in these spots where it's just like, yeah, you should just be checking all the time because you're in a multi-way spot. I'm staying the aggressor. And what you'll find out a lot of times is you just get to take down pots uncontested. I think I told you we've been talking a lot about our red line, right? And I cannot tell you that what's been good for me has been my improvement of my red line. There are a lot of spots where I'm in multi-way pots. Dude, we see a flop and the hand ends there, But again, a lot of it is just like experience. Like you can study spots, but you're just never going to get a true solve. Like it's just, like if you want to go that far down the tree, sure, go for it.
Right.
But one is those spots don't become GTO standard spots, right? They become street poker. So now you got to flip the switch. You know what I'm saying? And you have to now deviate from who wants this pot more kind of thing, And I think from a strategy piece, you can just understand like your higher equity ones. Like I don't check a lot. I just put money in the middle. I'm just putting money in the middle. I don't even plan to like get crazy fancy. I'm going to check raise in this spot. Because again, it doesn't matter if I check and I check raise, they call. If I bet big, they're just going to call anyway. Like they're so inelastic in so many spots that you can just bet every time. I can't tell you how many times I've never had an ace. Right. And I 3-bet in a spot where I have like 9-10. The board comes ace jack 3, but I had 3 callers and it comes ace high and it goes check, 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 comes to me. I bet half pot and it goes fold, fold, fold.
Yeah.
Because again, half the people are just gambling. 2, folks don't know what to do in a lot of spots. Right. And for me, I think it's just, it's like, you literally have to get in the chair, man. And you just have to experiment, get comfortable with all the extremely uncomfortable spots. And then you'll start realizing that you can just do things, I think watching and listening, along the way, like, the chances of the world, man, like no one stands a chance in most of the events, that these guys are in because they think on a whole different level. But it's the deviation, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I think it's so important. And I think when you watch even like some of the Triton events, you see these players deviate and do it so under the radar,
Right.
and that's what I really saw with like the top layer of the cake is like, there really is this realm where it's like, I can be balanced 80% of the time here and not be 20% of the time. And you'll never, ever know. Like, even if the card's up, like, it's so hard to adjust to. Couple things that I was thinking about while you were talking about that. One, you talk about needing the experience and keeping the butt in the seat. And we don't have to talk long about it, but kudos to you. I know this weekend, like, you fired Friday night, you fired Saturday morning, you fired Saturday night. You could have just been like, man, this weekend's not going my way, I'm shutting it down. And that was an 11.2K decision. So, kudos to that.
And throw another 500 on top because we final tabled the one on Friday night.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So, that is a very strong point. But I also think like you kind of are getting to a point now, at least I think you are. You can tell me for sure whether or not, where the DFW area is big and there's lots of card rooms, but everybody kind of knows everybody. And you're kind of starting to get that, people have played with you, they kind of know who you are, they kind of know what you're about, and you're starting to get street cred that buys you fold equity at the table.
Yeah.
Like, and to your point about aggression and really attacking these players, if you're not intimidating the first 8 times you play with somebody, you're not going to leave much of an impression on them 9 through 16, right? So talk a little bit about like where you're at. Are the fields in DFW starting to know who Jay is, and how are you using that to your advantage?
Yeah. So it's funny you say that because I saw a lot of this on Saturday where, I fired both flights. Where I fired the first one, went deep in that, but busted before the money, then slide over and play the night bet, right? I had a lot of tables, and there's certain spots or people that will now play. I get in a hand, they're like, nope, not against you, fold, right? Nope, not against you, and fold. And I haven't even been, I know we laugh because I get patched up, but I haven't even been wearing my patches,
I got a few patches for you, Jay.
Good. I'll put that on. But I knew the only way that I was going to get away with anything playing out here, because again, I'm not from this area, was that I had to establish my game, create my image, and then from that place, I can kind of navigate when I want to get away from that image. Like when I first started playing here a lot, I just was tight. I played tight. I folded a lot. A lot of it was just me kind of watching everyone because there's so many regs, like just watching everybody and kind of understanding everybody's style. And I focus a lot on that. And I just played the top of my range. But at the same time, what that allowed me to do was now it's like, oh, he's tight, right? And they think that you can just run over you. And you just adjust. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now they get to see who I really am. I can say now that like I can sit at tables or events here and it's like, oh, here we go. Like, can I get it? Can I get a table change? You know what I mean? And it helps. The downside is I know that eventually, right? There's going to be a few that pick up on my game, but like I think we talked about this is I try not to show the same Venom every week,
Right.
And I think that that's really key, especially when you're playing in a pool like this where they happen to kind of know you. You know what I'm saying? So I can say it's been in my favor. I'm always going to play hard anyway, so I think if anyone is like you're playing locally and like you have the ability to card room hop, that you just get to establish of like you're gonna walk in their room, you're one of the toughest players, and you get a lot of respect too. I meet a lot of people just because of whether it's just the way I played. I've been knocked out of tournaments and literally have a guy walk up to me and like call me to the side and be like, I'm gonna tell you, you're probably the toughest one in this event right now. Unfortunately, you just ran into a bad spot, but I wouldn't want to sit down with you ever again. And it makes me feel good, right? But I also know that that's okay coming from a $300 buy-in. I'm going to push myself to do that when that comes into a 5K. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I think that image has done well for me for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. We got a question from chat wanting to know how much you take bankroll management into the live grinds with like cash or tourney. Do you take more chances? Do you take less chances?
Ooh. Oh man, this bankroll conversation keeps coming up every time.
I gave you a month and a half off, Jay.
Oh man. So
we haven't talked bankroll in a long time.
Yeah, I will tell you that it has shifted a little bit, like with me. Because again, I think everybody knows, like, this, Rob, like most people that know me, like I'm a shot taker. I will take my shots. But I've also come to a place of I don't ever want to get like I want to get there on my own. I don't really want to get into like where I have like a backing deal. Like I'm not saying that I wouldn't entertain it in the right scenario, the right person, but at the end of the day, like it's just not worth the headache for me. I'd rather just take that stress on my own, But you have got to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a spot where, let's say you go, I'll use as an example, this 11K, right? I'm going to fire the main. And I'll probably fire 2 bullets at. Hopefully, we only have to fire 1. I'll probably fire 2 bullets at it, maybe 3 if I'm desperate enough to do it. But I also know
Can
that
I get a 5-ball?
Huh?
Can I get a 5-ball?
But I also like I know where my role, like my full role is, right?
Yeah.
But like you just come off of a score, like it's difficult to run deep back to back. You know what I'm saying? Like I understand that part. I'm not saying that I can't. Like I'm dialed in, but like making sure that I don't go at this thing and be like, I'm gonna fire 5 bullets at that. You know what I'm saying? Is really critical because let's say I do that and then another series shows up and then I have a bad run at cash. You know what I'm saying? In between time, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh damn, like I had 50K bankroll and now it's gone. You know what I mean? Or now it's 20K. Now I got to pick certain games. Or now it's like, oh,
Yep.
You know what? I'm not going out this summer because, I got smoked for a month and a half. You have to be very selective in the games that you're playing. I play in some games that I don't even know that I really want to play in them, but I do it just because of the bankroll. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's so many like $150 buy-ins, $130 buy-ins that I know that are really soft that I just have an edge in. So I'll take advantage of playing those because still on the top end of it, it's still a, 2 to 5K payout depending on the tournament. You know what I'm saying? And I know that like my ROI in those games are pretty good. So, but I can leverage that, right? By not firing every $500-600 event, you know what I mean? And I can play some of the smaller ones. Because it's not like online, you know, like you can sit down. A 5K bankroll online could last you
infinite,
right? Like it's just forever,
if
right?
you do it right. Yeah,
Right, yeah, correct. A 5K bankroll live could last you 2 weeks.
right.
You know what I'm saying? So you have to be very selective. And I think for me, you know, I've gotten into the spreadsheet world. And on mine, I literally I know you're laughing. I have on mine formulas that based on what's in there, that it'll tell me to take a shot or not. Right. So it'll basically be like move up a stake, move down a stake, stay where you're at. What's my risk of ruin if I take this? So I kind of built mine out to be a little more strategic for myself, other than just like tracking what I'm doing, you know. But I think honestly, like if you're gonna do it, you have to treat it like a business. I know we talked about this on one of the, you know, the first pod, right? It was just like, hey, like I have to take my business sense and apply it to my poker career right now, because if I do that, it could be endless for me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think people, when they think about bankroll management, they're fixated on the dollars, right? It's like my bankroll is 5K, my bankroll is 7K, my bankroll is 3K, and they overvalue the bankroll when it's high and going up, and they undervalue the bankroll when it's low and going down.
Right.
Where the way that I think is more healthy to think about bankroll is not in terms of dollars, but in terms of opportunity, because to your point, right? Like if you fired 5 bullets in the main this weekend and busted them all, you're still going to be fine. In fact, you'd still be up for the weekend, but that takes some opportunities potentially off your plate in the future, right? Like maybe there's something in a month that's nearby ish and you hear it's overlaying and you're like, oh, like Lodge is going to have a 1600 and it's got $500,000 in overlay. And you're like, damn, I should be firing that. But now you can't justify, you know, firing that 1600 because you yeeted 4K at a main. And granted, the main's an opportunity too, but we have to kind of be thinking about the opportunities at hand now and the opportunities that could come up in the future, and making sure that we're keeping ourselves, you know, as available to those opportunities as possible.
Right. Like if you know what your average stake is, then you just apply that thought process to your stating, right? So example, yeah, I take a shot at that. But to your point, if the monster down at the lodge is a $400 buy-in, well, guess what? I can fire 5 bullets at that, which is probably what it would take. But 5 bullets at that, you know what I mean? That now I don't have because I fired just 3 bullets at this event, you know, at this particular main, you know. Or I can play a full run good series, right, at 2 bullets for each event. But again, well, now I can only play these 2 particular ones because I fired 3 bullets at this main, you know. And then what you're taking away is you're putting all of your eggs in that one basket. That like, I got to cash the main, or I got to, you know what I mean? Whereas like, no, the reality is that I probably just need to fire all 5 of these run goods. I'm going to spike one of them off, you know, which now when I spike that off, well, now guess what? Now when the WPT comes back into Chalk Tower, you know, in town, I can actually go up there and I can fire every one of those events. You know what I mean?
Which is a huge place to be.
Right. Because there's just going to be so much upside, you know? I mean, there are large fields, and that's probably not anything you want to get into today, but you know, large field events could ruin your life. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe you want to play some smaller, you know, ones. Cause I know you talked about that. You got some material out there right now about, you know, large field events, but you have to just be really smart in picking apart like which ones you want to play. I've passed up on a few, you know, that I'm just like, yeah, I'm not going to play this. I'll tell you, in my experience too, was the end of last year with the Poker Atlas. Remember, I came off that other score where Albert was kicking my ass at the final table. I came off that score, man, and I fired a ton of Atlas and I bricked everything, you know. And I was kind of pissed, but that's because, you know, sometimes you don't know if you're on a heater, right? So you're just like, we got to take the shot.
Heat check.
Right. Heat check. And then next thing you know, it's like, nope, Like, you're pure dust right now. But yeah, man, I think that like you have to be very, very smart at it, and some opportunities lead to other opportunities, but you could blow that if you're not very specific, you know?
I think that's the hardest part. Is it's so hard to get your bankroll to a place that's commensurate to your skill.
Right.
Right. Like if you were to look at all the games you could beat profitably and ask yourself, how many of them do you have access to today? I don't know many people that can say all of them.
Right.
Even like some of the really good players, right? Like you could pick some mid-stakes players that crush 1600s and go, could you go play 10Ks and beat them? Yes. Do you have the bankroll to go play 10Ks and beat them? No. Not without selling 60, 70, 80%.
Right.
It's so hard to do.
Right.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. We don't have to get in that today, but I think to your point again, it's just like understanding, you know, how to kind of build that wisely and understanding that there are future opportunities and not just taking the first opportunity that comes, but finding the best one.
Right.
I want to close with this. Jay, I want you to think back to when you were on that first layer of cake where you were just learning the exploits and you were just getting into the game, right? And because I'm sure there's people in chat that are on that level and you're doing incredible things. You've been incredibly consistent. You're starting to rack up deep run after deep run after deep run in Texas. You're building a reputation. I think you're ready for a big breakout. It's only a matter of time before the 50, 60, 70K score comes, and it'll be the first of many. What did it take for you to get from there to here? And if maybe if you had to do it again, maybe like how would you do it more efficiently? Like what is someone at that stage got to do to get to where you're at? And you don't have to sugarcoat it.
No, yeah. I'm not gonna sugarcoat shit. I think you guys know me better than that, but I'll be honest, it's not for the weak, you know. I think what the first thing you have to understand or you have to keep in your mind is, do you have the level of commitment that's required? Right? Let's take the bankroll shit out of the way. Okay? Because you can always build that. You know what I mean? And the way to do it is probably get really good at cash, or good enough. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because MTT variance is just through the roof. So you have to be someone mentally, you just have to be committed. And I will tell you, like in the beginning, I wasn't committed, right? So I was lighting money on fire. And then finally I was just like, I can't continue to just like I have so much passion for the game. I love the game, but I don't want to just be one of these players that is just like, oh, I enjoy it so much. Like, I like to have fun. Like I have fun when I play right now. Right. But the difference is that like, I'm having fun, but I also understand what I'm doing. And I also understand like what level I'm at, you know, and I'm like, I need to do more, or, you know, if I want to get better, I'm gonna have to do these X things. But like if you're an entry player, like you're enough where like you're into GTO, you know, like you're understanding some of the solves, you're understanding some of the things that you should do. You sometimes have to like, this is me being honest, like ignore that shit and just go play the game. Like I can't tell you how many times like we'll talk about a spot, right? I'm just gonna use it. You got my passion level up now, Rob. You know, we have these conversations, and the good part is that at least like the people around me, like, you know, you yourself and like part of the, you know, the rest of the crew, like we can say things that like nobody gets their feelings hurt, you know. And I tend to just be the one that's like, yeah, who gives a flying shit what the solver just told you to do in this spot? I promise you, in this particular player pool or this stake, they just never fucking do this, right? You have to get your place mentally that you can get away from those things when needed to. But more importantly, you can't just go play the game once or twice a week, 3 times a week, and then come out of this and like either win, right? Say you played 3 times this week, killed it, and now you're just like, you know what? I'm going to jump up to the next stake. So I'm going to start burying 109s, you know, and 200s, you know, on like some sites that I won't name, but like, you know, you start doing these things and then all of a sudden in a week and a half, you catch every bit of downswing bad variance and you're just like, sites are rigged. I'm really not good at this game. And then next thing you know, like it's a mental breakdown. And when that happens, if you don't have the ability to power through, all of that effort, all that work you put in is for absolutely nothing. Like it's a waste of time. You have to go so deep and understand your why. I know I shared a video with you this weekend, Rob, and I know you know that's me, right? So like if you're putting yourself in a spot, like you're just getting into this game, you know just enough, you have to go the next level, right? So as you were talking today, right, Rob, like you have each layer of the cake. Have a plan to say, how am I going to get to layer 4 and 5? And if I'm at layer 1, it's going to require me to play a ton to get the experience. I'm going to get my ass handed to me. I'm going to lose in this game more than I win. If you're not learning how to play cash, it's going to be even tougher battle, because in cash, you can make mistakes, right? And eventually they level out. Where like MTTs, other people make mistakes and you pay the price. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just how it works in MTTs, right? Like that's how it goes down. The variance is too wild. But if you can get really good at creating some type of income, right? Or some type of profit in the game, build yourself a small role and then take your little small shots, as you go. But if you don't have cash to fall on, and I think if you're just full MTT, like you're going to be, eventually you'll be staking. You'll be asking for stakes. You're going to say, hey, like I'm going to sell off some of my action, because you want to keep yourself in the game. There's nothing wrong with that. I sell action, right? But most people are not ready to put in the time, the effort, the commitment, the study. And when I say study, I'm just talking like study enough just to beat your local game. And then throw on top of that this weekend as an example. How many people do we know that's like, even within our space, like we got some grinders around, right? That it's like, hey, you go fire an event starts at 7 p.m. on a Friday night. You go deep in that. It's 2:30 in the morning by the time you get home. You go to sleep, you wake up, you go fire at 10 a.m., 400K. And then you go through that, you get your ass destroyed deep in that one when you're feeling good and your whole morale gets tanked, right? And now it's 4:49 p.m. and you jump in your vehicle and you're like, well, fuck, the next flight is, you know what I mean? In 8 minutes, let me hurry up and get over there and then grind that out till that was 3 o'clock in the morning, right? Go home, get some rest, get up, go fire day 2, still have the mindset, right, to go in and sit down and grind, right? Enough to where there's so many dynamics changing in a day 2. Like people just
completely card dead.
Yeah, completely. I was card dead for, I think I told you, I folded for 6 hours. 6 hours of folding. Like my 2 best hands were ace queen, pocket queens. That ace queen that I got at the final table was my best hand since 16 players left. It was literally the best hand that I had. But you battle, you fight, you pick your spots. It requires a lot from a mental game, from adjustments, and commitment. But none of this matters if you can't get your ass in a seat. Again, separate bankroll, man. Like I get it. Like not everybody has, the money or the funds to do it. Dude, I've left the game 5 times in my career, where I'm just like, I just don't have it. I never wanted to do staking. I didn't want to do any of that. You know what I mean? But then I started realizing like, yeah, well, part of the problem why you have to walk away is not your bankroll. It's because you're not willing to do the things that it requires for you to do to actually be good at this game.
Right.
And I think if you're a layer 1, get really good at layer 1, and then you start bringing in layer 2. And then you get to layer 3, and then you probably could make a pretty decent profit just having that in your bank, like unless you plan to be a Triton regular, And that's different. You probably need to find a way to get to layer 7 pretty quickly. But I think you get to that layer 3, man, and you really hone in on that and get good, and then just realize that like you're gonna lose a lot in this game. But you have to mentally power through it. Like there's so many people that walk away, and like that whole meme that goes out, right? Where the guy just, you know, in the mine underground digging through the dirt and the diamonds on the other side, and he turns around at the end, right? And it's like, you should have just kept going. The diamonds were one swing away. Like, dude, you just have to mentally power through, you know?
Yeah.
And most people don't have it. They don't have it, or they don't care to have it. You know what I'm saying? And my thing is like, if you don't care to have it, then you probably should like play a different game.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think if you want to make a run at the game of poker, you need to get really comfortable with losing, like comfortable with it.
Yep.
Accept it. It's going to happen. Be comfortable with it. It is what it is. I think that you need to give no shits what anybody thinks about you. Like you can't be in this, well, it looks bad because I fired 6 bullets and busted, or, oh, if I fold in this spot, then so-and-so is going to make fun of me. Nobody will respect me in the morning. All that shit has to go.
Right.
And you have to understand that it could take years to get where you want to get, but the payoff is so damn worth it. Like if I can think back to the 3 or 4 biggest highlights of my poker career, there was not a single thing that happened leading up to those moments that I was like, yeah, this wasn't worth it. Like those payoffs are some of the sweetest payoffs you'll experience in life. Not to take away from all the other wonderful experiences we have in life. We have awesome families and kids, of course, but there's something special about knowing you survived so many bad nights, so many sleepless nights, so many disappointments, and you didn't give up. And that is such a rewarding feeling that like it's worth all the losing. It's worth all the failing. It's worth people laughing at you or pointing at you and telling you you're doing it wrong. So yeah. But I equate it to like you talked about the business analogy earlier. It's like if you're debating taking a serious shot at poker, ask yourself if you would start a business today. Would you have the skills to start a business? Like would you have the guts to do it in your current situation? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably in the place where you have the same, passion and zeal to go after poker. But if starting a business would terrify you, I mean,
then this ain't it.
You can play for fun, right? Like it doesn't have to be like this. We've talked about this many times. Like there's lots of ways to enjoy poker and not do it that seriously, but it really is like it is. I think it's one of the toughest ways that you can make a living, but it's one of the most rewarding because it's one of the toughest.
Yeah, risk reward, man. Like if you're willing to risk the time, the effort, like it's going to come. Like if you're someone right now that's, and I know there were folks out there who's watching or will watch, like if you're at a place right now where it's like, oh, I just feel like it's never going to happen. Or, I've had a few scores that are not great. Like it will show up, it will show up. We talk about this, Rob, right? I almost called Rob about in tears one day because I was like, dude, I have literally final table bubbled the damn money, like direct bubble. And it was like, what, 16 events in a row or some crazy number like that. And I'm like, Rob, holy shit. But then I knew, I was like, you know what, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Or it just so happens that like, you just can't control it. You know what I'm saying? But here I am, right? A year later, and my grind is still the same. I don't, you know what I mean? It's probably even more now than when it was when we had the conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you just gotta keep pushing, man. Like you said, like if you don't have the ability, you don't feel good about it, you don't want to, to your point, like if you're not willing to go open up a business tomorrow, then it's no different than poker. You know what I mean? But there's so many ways, like, and just go enjoy it. Like I enjoy what I'm doing, to be honest. Like I really do. I enjoy it. I had a lot of fun. I walked away from that table the other day. I was a little annoyed because the dude was a card rack, but like when I walked away from it, like I slept like a baby. You know what I mean? Knowing that, damn, I left 70 grand on the table. You know what I'm saying? And then I go, you know what? I'll get up and we'll look at some more. What are we going to fire next? And I think that's, you know, it's just the mindset you have to have. And most people don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And having someone like you is perfect, you know, someone who you can pick up the phone and be like, hey man. And then you'd be like, well, what are you firing next? You know what I'm saying? Accountability partners.
Baby.
Right.
Oh,
accountability partners are great.
Well, one piece of advice I have for everybody is you should probably stay off the line for the next month because Jay's getting ready to fire a bunch of online actions. So this might be a good month to go out and play live.
Yep.
But what do you know? Do you know what your next live event is going to be? Have you looked that far ahead?
So I'll play the main this weekend.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you get the main this weekend.
And then after the main, I'll be playing purely online for my own reasons. And then the month after that, I think I don't know if the WPT shows up then. I thought it showed up in March. I have to double check. If not, I'll probably be traveling somewhere. Because I don't know, like we're supposed to go to Philly. And I don't know when that is, but
yeah, that's like mid-March. I hope that comes to fruition because if
that becomes,
I've always wanted to go down there.
Like I'll probably set aside for that. But yeah, I'm gonna do 1 month of just pure online grind. I probably won't play any live. I say any live. I probably will still do my cash sessions because you know me and the Copa Club have a very good relationship. Me and those players. But yeah, I'm gonna grind mostly online for all of February, and then we'll look at the rest of the year.
Well, I super appreciate you being here. For all of you here, make sure you guys check us out tonight. Jay will be on with us tonight again. We're in the Chase the Dream podcast. We got episode 3 tonight. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll talk a little bit more about Jay's big score and some other things going on. We got some prop bets to talk about. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. That ought to be good. I can't wait for that.
I can't either. Tell everybody where they can find you on socials and we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, you can hunt me down at VA_Venom on Twitter and at VA.Venom on IG. TikTok at VA Venom. I'm out there. You guys definitely follow Chase the Dream. You'll get to know a lot more, I think, about me a little more in depth in that space as well. So I'm out there. Drop a chat, drop a like, hit me up, DM me, whatever you want. You know, I'm an outgoing guy, Rob. You know what I mean? I like people. I like people. I just don't like the chip.
I'm super excited about that $11 an hour private coaching deal you're launching next month.
Oh, so that's going to be good. You ready for that?
DMs are going to be flooded.
God, bro, don't start that. Holy shit.
Well, make sure you thank Mrs. Venom for us.
Yeah.
You know, behind every successful man, there is a more successful and more patient woman. So
if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here.
Oh, for sure. All right, y'all. We're going to get out of here. We'll see you guys tonight, 7:30 Eastern. Watch ChaseTheDream.com. Peace out.